Views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this episode are that of the guest and host and do not necessarily reflect the values of sponsors or other associated organizations. Welcome to the Parental Compass by Family Education and Support Services. I am your host, Bobby Williams. Please subscribe to the show and leave us a review. Give us some feedback, ideally positive feedback, so other people want to listen to the show. Summertime and the living's easy. But it's not easy if you're not being safe around water. That's why we are talking about water safety. We're going into summer, and it's important to stay safe. You would think water safety is just obvious, just don't drown. But there are a lot of nuances that are important to know about and that may not be just totally obvious. Our guest today is Jackie Barrett of the South Sound YMCA. She is the Aquatic Director, and she spent a lifetime and career around aquatics. She has been a swim coach, a synchronized swimming coach. She has been a lifeguard. She's done it all. And she is here to share her wisdom with us. So let's dive in. Check it out.
There's so many times I've witnessed it myself at lakes and rivers and different places where parents might be just sitting, reading a book on their phone and not exactly specifically aware of where their child is in relation to the water. So anyone can drown in an inch of water or more. Drowning is just when the airway is blocked with water. So it's classified as a drowning death anytime there's water preventing you from getting oxygen or air in order to keep breathing. And when we stop breathing from that, the heart will stop and then progressively down the line, which is just absolutely tragic. So having that constant supervision and just knowing where our children are. So having a water watcher is really important, someone who is designated. It could be the parent, it could be an older sibling, a group of family members together or friends with their children around the water, but at least one responsible person needs to be designated as the water watcher to be constantly supervising and just keeping track of where the kids are in relation to where the water is the edge of the water.
It seems like so often the phone is such a temptation, or you kind of glance up, you look at your phone,
Yep.
you glance up again, but problems could happen real quick, I assume.
Yes, and it does. I mean, it only takes seconds. So I think a lot of times when we take our kids, let's say to a lake, for example, we think it might just be like going to the park where, they're playing on a play structure, going down a slide, making friends with other kids, and that's dry land. That's on land, and they can just kind of run and play. Maybe they fall down and get hurt, and we hear them crying, and we have to get up and go attend to them. And so a parent might get used to that kind of dry land situation and letting their children play. And so, yeah, I'm sure we all can very easily get sucked into watching videos or catching up on social media or, even a podcast or something else on our phones. And that just draws us in, and we're not as aware of our children's safety as we would want to be. But when you're around water, it's very, very different than just being at a playground and letting your child play and run around. We do need to have that constant awareness of where they are. And so putting our phones down and being able to keep our eyes constantly scanning and just watching the kids as they're in the water. And even the other great thing about helping kids get comfortable in water and just learning water safety is for parents and children to be in the water together. So often, as parents, we might want to sit on the sidelines and kind of let the kids run and play. But when we go in the water, if we all go in together as a family, it can be a lot more constructive to help teach the kids water safety, basic just principles, and then keep them safe.
I think we really underestimate the power of water too. Like you think just floating on a lake, and then I floated on the lake several times last summer, and then, the next week you hear someone drowned in that same lake. But It's powerful, and you don't even realize how much so sometimes.
Yeah, it is true. I've seen so many of those stories. There's every summer, getting into the spring, even into the fall, we hear about these drownings that happen on a regular basis. And it is, not always something that could have been prevented. It might have been something that would have happened anyway with a medical condition or something like that. But too often it is a preventable reason that that person was either in water over their head and they were struggling and they ended up sinking to the bottom, or they just, got so tired from trying to swim across a lake or overestimating their own swimming ability when they really needed to stop and rest. And then no one was around to hear them calling for help. So it is really hard to think about, something that should be enjoyed by all and able to be playing in the water and just relaxing and enjoying floating, watching your children dig in the sand and play, but it can turn tragic really quickly.
Another thing that I remember really struck me last summer was just how cold the water is. It's like 80 degrees out, and the water's just still freezing.
Yes, that is absolutely true. And so many, especially lakes, I feel like with the depth of the water, we don't realize, the surface, the top few inches, even the top foot of the water might feel nice and warm as we start to dip into it. And then as you submerge and get down a little deeper, or you're fully submerged, or kids are jumping off a dock and swimming around and having a great time, the longer you're in that water, your heart rate can slow down and blood pressure. There's just a lot of things that can start to happen to the body, and hypothermia can set in really quickly. So, not being aware of the difference between the air temperature and the water temperature is definitely a risk around these open bodies of water. That could be rivers, lakes, Puget Sound, the ocean. There's just so many cold bodies of water that it might feel so warm and exciting to go to the cold water, but we really need to be aware of lowering our core body temperature and then causing problems with cold water. It's very dangerous. It can be. Yeah.
So I understand the supervision piece, but are there other things you can do when you're out with your child to make it a more safe environment?
Yes, definitely. I think learning about just kind of helping kids feel comfortable in the water. So finding a depth where, your child can touch easily, they can kind of walk around, they can get used to being submerged in water, or the parent can be holding the child and the child might be, a very small 2-year old, and the parent is standing in 3 or 4 feet of water, but they are able to kind of control the child's movement, maybe throw a toy and hold your child and kick to go reach for the toy. So just kind of on the surface, just general movement is a great way for kids to get introduced to kind of those basics of body positions in the water. And then just being able to figure out where you can grab onto the edge of the pool or get back to the dock or the stairs or the shallower area where you can touch. So kind of just like feeling out those parameters of where we can safely play and enjoy being in the water together is a really great idea. And then the flotation, so kind of educating ourselves about life jackets, different types of personal flotation devices that would actually clip onto our bodies and keep us safe is a really great way to ensure safety for the kids.
It seems like life jackets too. You think like, oh, they just have a life jacket, they're good. But there's a lot of nuances to life jackets, right? It's not just one size fits all. Or what are the misconceptions out there about life jackets?
Yeah, and so thinking of a PFD, a personal flotation device, and having the correct life jacket that fits you is really important. So the first thing is kind of determining what you want to do. If it's for boating safety, there might be certain requirements of who is wearing a life jacket on the boat or the different type of watercraft. But then also just really making sure the life jacket fits the child correctly and they have the right size that they need and it's actually buckled on them in the right way. If there's, 3 different buckles, all 3 need to be attached, not just one, and kind of it's on like a little jacket just in case. It's really
Mhm.
more just, making sure they really are wearing it. So we do a safety day here for swim lessons at the Y. And one of the things I always tell the kids about is we think of life jackets the same way we would think of a seatbelt in the car. So when you get in the car, what do you put on to be safe? You put on your buckle. So a lot of kids, have a front closure. They might buckle it like this, not across like a seatbelt, but we buckle up for safety when we're in the car, right? Is that because we think we're going to get in a car accident every time we're driving our car? No, it's just for emergency situations, just in case we want to already have our buckle on, our seatbelt, so that we can be safe. And it's the same for life jackets. If we're on a boat or on a paddleboard or anything like that, we need to have it on just in case of emergency, not because we think we're always going to fall off the boat or something else is going to happen, but we want to make sure if it does, we're prepared for that and we have our life jacket on our body already.
But that's not going to look as cool for my picture for Instagram.
I know, or it's going to mess with your tan line or something else. It's a rough, there's all kinds of reasons or excuses we might hear about why not to wear it. I understand.
Mhm. So we're talking a lot about little kids,
Mm.
and I don't know any statistics about this or anything, but it seems like teen boys are particularly vulnerable to drowning too. Explain that for me.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few stories in recent years, as recently as last summer. Just thinking of kind of that demographic of like 16 to 20-year-old young men, and where I think it happens where it just gets to this, competitive phase. I can swim that far, or they're daring each other or trying to kind of egg each other on. I bet you, couldn't do this. Well, watch me try. And I think it's kind of become that type of, just competitive environment that all of us tend to do, but especially, boys around that age and that demographic. I think sometimes just, they're going to dare each other to do things or take it upon themselves to prove to their friends how strong they are, how far they can swim. So I know specifically the ones I'm thinking of is someone who had set out to swim across a lake. They could see the other side of the lake, and his friend dared him, I bet you can't swim that far. And he said, watch me, here I go. And it was just a group of young men. And the one did start swimming across, got about halfway across, started to struggle and panic. And there was no one who was able to go out and help him and save him before he started sinking and he lost his life. So just the idea of, kind of that competition, that group of boys and young men that can potentially cause a real safety hazard where someone would be putting themselves in an unsafe position around their friends that maybe they wouldn't if they were by themselves or with someone else. But kind of that group dynamic can be really dangerous, I think. And then just not knowing our own limitations. Like maybe they thought they could swim that far and they realized how tired, they didn't know how tired they would get, and they got to that point of really starting to struggle. And it's a mind game too. When the drowning process starts, you get into this panicked mental state where you're struggling to breathe. If you've ever had the wind knocked out of you or had a panic attack where it's just, you're trying to take a deep breath and you can't do that physically, your body's not allowing you to inhale enough oxygen. It kind of just starts to mess with your brain, and you get these levels of, serotonin goes down, just a lot of different sciencey technical things that are happening to the brain when the drowning process starts. And it's really hard. The only way to really stop that from happening and continuing down the path of drowning is to get that person where their airway is completely out of the water. So that's where in lifeguard training we learn how to rescue that person with the correct flotation and lift them up so they're on their back and their airway is out of the water completely, so they can get a couple deep breaths of oxygen and start to come down from that panicky drowning state.
Yeah, and it's so tragic. And you think, like, so say that young person that's swimming across the lake, if they would have just like did a back float for an hour, someone would have come and saved them, or is there anything they
Yeah.
could do to prevent
Well,
that
and
once
that's
they're out
where,
there?
if we are going into open water like that, even if we're strong swimmers, we should have some type of rescue plan. So someone should be with us, either with, a paddleboard or a rescue kayak or something. So even, people training for open water swimming, they have some type of buoy flotation that they take with them and trail behind. So either a, rescue equipment type of thing you can take with you, or another person who's in a rescue boat or a paddleboard who would then be able to reach out and help you if you need it. So really it's just the preparation of like having the correct equipment to do that type of a swim. And a lot of times when people do it, they don't even, they might not know how far it is. It might be half a mile across that lake and it looks like it's only 200 yards, oh, I can swim over there. And you get halfway out and you realize how far it is. But yeah, being able to kind of just roll on your back, maybe kick a little bit, take a breath is really a good way to combat that.
So we're talking a lot about swimming, but a lot of us, even parents, don't know how to swim. And how do you teach something you don't know, or what do you? How can we teach more young people to swim?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, there's definitely a lot of families that if the parent or the grandparent didn't have the opportunity to learn how to swim themselves, they might not realize how important it is for their own child. So finding some way to get your children into formal swimming lessons, whether it be, at a place like the YMCA, or we have a lot of great private swim schools in the Olympia area. There's just so many opportunities to sign up for swim lessons. So there's that. But then also just finding even tutorials online, of finding some little YouTube videos or some way to start, just breaking down kind of the skills that would be the most helpful to teach kids just those basics of breathing, blowing bubbles, floating, gliding, kicking, just kind of starting to paddle in the water a little bit. And even for an adult who doesn't know how to swim themselves, they could kind of learn with their child through a lot of different mediums, but being able to start somewhere and get comfortable in the water, just even standing in shallow water and starting to do some bobs where you go up and take a breath and go down and blow bubbles, and just kind of getting yourself loosened up in the pool, is a really great way to start learning some of those basics, even if it wasn't something you learned yourself.
So there is YouTube University to learn to swim, and then
Mhm.
Ys are all over the place. Do they
Mhm.
usually have like a sliding scale, or if it seems too expensive, is it still possible to sign up your kid for lessons?
Yes, as far as I know, every YMCA around the world has financial assistance available. We do here at the South Sound YMCA. We have two branches with pools. So out in Shelton, there's a pool at the Shelton Family YMCA, and then here in Olympia at Briggs. And so everyone, we would love to see as many people, especially those who haven't ever had the opportunity to start the process of learning how to swim, be able to find a scholarship, a financial assistance for either to get a membership to the Y or just to come in and do programs like swim lessons. So that is always available to those who qualify to receive that assistance. And we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to learn how to swim. It's a life skill that we all deserve to have. So we want to provide equal access for that as much as we can.
Another thing I think about is babies. I'm having a baby in September, and thinking about this episode, it seems fun, like bringing babies in water, but you can actually teach them to swim a little when they're toddlers, or what's the deal with that?
Yeah, so here at the Y, we have what's called parent taught swim lessons. So there's always a parent or a guardian with each child. And the ages for parent taught, we have as young as 6 months old, pretty much just so they have some head and neck control before starting some of the movement in the water. So 6 months up to 3 year olds are in that parent taught swim lesson. And so the parent or guardian is holding them, usually kind of just holding the sides of their body, and they're moving side to side through the water. They move forward on their front and then roll back on their back. So just a lot of kind of body positions of getting used to being gliding on the surface of the water. And then they can start, taking a breath and closing up to go underwater. We do some submersion in a very careful and safe way with the kids. They might come off the wall. We do little alligator jumps where they have their alligator arms, and then they kind of do a little sitting dive coming into the parent. And
Hmm.
one of the main things with that is just learning to wait. The child needs to sit and wait until we get to the part of the alligator jump where we come in the water and the parent is welcoming them in. So the child is learning, I don't go in the water whenever I want to. I wait until daddy or mommy or grandma or whoever I'm swimming with is bringing me in, and then we go together. So it's kind of just reinforcing from a young age for the children, I don't ever go into the water or around the water by myself. I wait to be brought in, holding hands, sitting down, waiting for that signal to come in the water. But yeah, there's a lot of great, like I kind of mentioned, throwing the toys. You can throw a toy and scoop and kick to go get it. So just on the surface of the water, maybe rolling over sometimes front to back. There's a lot of skills that those little parent taught kids, and it's the most adorable thing. They're so cute. They have so much fun in the pool in their little swimsuits, and some of them have little swim caps. It's just,
Well, if you start bringing them into the water when they're really little, they won't know any different. And so it's
mhm.
just a thing they've always done.
Yep.
So maybe in a year or so, you'll see me in one of
That
those
would be
classes.
so
Yeah.
great. Yes, we'd love to have you.
Do you have a closing message or idea you'd like to leave the parents listening with?
Yeah, I think just kind of back to the beginning of thinking about no person should ever be swimming alone. So even as parents and as adults, we can model that for our kids and making sure that we know where each other are around the water. So if we go on a vacation or we're going to the hotel pool, wherever we are, just as a family, as a group, as a couple, as a parent with a child, we go together, and then knowing how to call for help if you do get in a situation where there's a potential for drowning or an emergency or any kind of medical reason that you would need help, figuring out where, what's the plan for how we could call for help if we need it when we do have. So it's the buddy system, really. Just supervision is all about having a designated water watcher and a buddy who's with you. So it's not just me going in the water, it's me and my friend or me and my child. So we always have some kind of plan of how we could help each other if there becomes a time when it's unsafe for us to be around the water. So buddy system, having a plan, and then just that constant supervision of having a water watcher, someone to know where the kids are in relation to the edge of the water.
Great conversation. Thank you so much, Jackie.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie Barrett. I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate your wisdom. Let's have fun, y'all, this summer. Let's get in the water. Let's have a good time, but let's be safe. This has been the Parental Compass by Family Education and Support Services. I'm Bobby Williams. We'll see you next episode. Peace.